Today on Red Dog Bushcraft, I'm going to show you a fast and easy way to wet form this sheath. Now this is one of my everyday carry knives, and it's been a very good knife for that purpose for a while, and as you can tell, it's seen lots of love. The issue I'm having with it is that with wear and getting wet and dried out and everything else, the retention is not where it needs to be. And I'm finding that sometimes when I'm sitting down or getting in awkward positions, the knife can actually slide back out of the sheath, and that's not safe, and we're going to do something about that. We're going to wet form it. For that process, we are going to use a Food Saver vacuum bag system. I've got a bag here. We're going to wet form, then treat it, the leather sheath with this. This is the Havelis Bush Tool, the waxy type tool preservative and leather treatment that they're putting out now, which I have found to be a very good leather treatment. We're going to see how it holds up on a wet form sheath. We want to get this thing good and solid with good retention, but yet we want to treat this sheath and the leather with something that will help preserve the blade. So stand by and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, since we're going to be wet forming this sheath, is we need to protect the blade. So I'm just going to take some of that, put it on my finger, and just a little tip about this protectant that they're selling. It comes in handy for so many different uses that when I get ready to start a project like this, I wash my hands real good when I'm rubbing it on this block, so that I keep it relatively clean, because I'm finding it's very useful for some medicinal purposes and also as a lip balm. So I don't want it getting all nasty. So I have washed the knife, cleaned it, and then I'm applying this all over it to protect it while it's inside that wet sheath. And after that's done, we'll come back and we'll clean this blade up a little bit. You can tell it's had a lot of use, and it's ready for a good cleaning. Okay, so with that done, let's wet our sheath. Okay, to wet the sheath, I'm going to use just hot tap water. I'm not going to boil it or anything like that. And this is going to be real time of how long I'll leave it in the water. It really doesn't take very long. First thing I'm going to do is just get the outside all wet. I'm going to run water on the inside of it for just a couple of seconds. Cut it down, let it set. You can see the water starting to slowly drain out the bottom. Pour that out, give it a little squeeze, and we can see that that loop is getting smaller, so that leather is wet enough to start forming. We'll go ahead and put the protected knife in there and just give it an initial little working with my fingers. Not much, because we're going to let the machine do most of this. But just right here where sometimes you start to get a little hump because of the way it goes around the handle, I like to just give that a little bit of a squeeze. And then up here where the belt loop is, I like a nice tight bend there. Not completely flat, but enough to where it sits nice on my belt. Okay, from that, we're going to go right straight to the vacuum sealer. Okay, so we'll open up the vacuum sealer, and I have one end of the bag sealed 3 times, and I cut my bags kind of long, so when I'm doing my knives, I can cut it and get 2 or 3 uses out of one bag. So I'm going to set this to where it's laying on the countertop flat. I don't want it hanging off or anything. I want the knife pretty much centered in the bag. Make sure that the end is within the proper area of the vacuum saver, and turn it on and let it do its thing. Okay, it automatically cuts off and seals, and as you can see, that vacuum sealer really seals and pulls that leather in around that sheath, around that blade very well. Now, they're still out on how long you should leave it inside the bag like this. Some people say overnight. Some people say you can take it out right now. I generally let it sit for a couple of hours, so I'm going to do that. I just keep checking it. As long as it feels like it's good and solid and where I want it, we can take it out and let it start drying. I'll bring you back when it's time to take it out of the bag. Okay, it's only been about a half an hour, but this thing's looking good, so we're going to go ahead and open the bag up. And I'm going to cut right along that heated seal there. And we'll remove this knife and see what it looks like. See how the sheath took its form, and if we're happy with that, which I am, it's locking in there very nice now. It's molded nice around the end. The belt loop is a lot flatter now than it was, and I've got good definition of where the blade is, but especially around where the handle is. I don't think I need to work this anymore at all. I'm happy with this. So now we'll just take the knife out and let this air dry. And once it's completely dry, we'll come back and we'll start sealing it. Now, like I said, we're going to seal this with this Haveless bush tool treatment. And I've got a new brush that we can use to actually get that down in here as far as we can. We're actually going to heat a little bit of it so it runs down into the bottom, and we're going to wax this entire sheath with this bush tool treatment. I'll bring you back once the sheath dries, and I'm just going to let that air dry. No heat. Okay, next step, we're going to take some plain old brown shoe polish, since this is a brown sheath. And we're going to come right up here on the outside edge and apply some of that just to get the color of the leather on the inside. We'll get that finished up, and that shoe polish will stain that well enough. It's a wax, so it'll help protect that leather just like it does your shoes, but it will also give us the color that we're looking for, so that what looks like the inside, or at least the part that we're able to see of the leather sheath, will have that aesthetically pleasing look there also. Put a little bit of it here. Alright, that's enough of that. Don't take a lot. We just want to get that color back and get something in there to seal those edges, just for the eye appeal. And of course, we need to clean that up a little bit with a brush. And all of this stuff is just the standard equipment that you have for polishing your shoes or your boots. Nothing special. It's plain old shoe polish. Alright. Now, for the Haveless, the gear wax. We're going to take that, I'm going to take a new toothbrush and saturate that toothbrush really good. And the first thing I'm going to do is really put it heavy on this blade. And I wiped the blade clean after I took it out of the sheath after being wet, just to get rid of any oils or dirt or anything that was on it, because I really want to put a heavy coat on this blade, because I want it to come off of the blade and actually get on the leather, because now that I've shrunk this leather down, I can't get the toothbrush all the way down into the bottom. But that's okay, because we're going to put enough in here up at the top that we're going to be able to get it down there without any problem. So first step is just to apply this gear wax liberally down in here. Now I've done this with some of the leather treatment and waterproofer that I've made, but this is the first time I've used the gear wax by Haveless. But I've been so impressed with it so far that I think it's going to be perfect for this too. Okay, fit that back in there and rub that in around that edge there for just a second, and let me run and get the hair dryer, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'll spare you all of the noise, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a hair dryer on high and heat this leather and this wax now and force it into that leather. But I'm not going to use a heat gun, it's just a standard hair dryer, and I'm going to make sure I hold my hand on it so I do not overheat it and burn this thing. Leather will burn, and you don't want to do that. Alright, I can see it starting to melt. I don't know if you can see that or not. So I'm going to stop for just a minute. I'm going to heat that blade up. Get it to where it's running. I may even heat up a little bit and pour it down in there. Cut that off right quick while they're hot. Put it in there and massage that. I'm going to do that a couple times till I'm sure I've got that gear wax down in that sheath really well. Okay, I've got everything treated on the inside, and this thing is nice and warm. It's not hot. See, I'm holding it, but it is definitely warm. I'm going to rub that gear wax all over the outside too. So now the sheath is coated inside and out, and the blade is covered. And I'm going to put that back in the bag, and I'm going to vacuum seal it back down. Make sure that's in there just right. Everything is flat. There we go. Here we go. Oh, didn't plug it in. Gosh, to plug it in. Alright, something ain't right. Lose something. Put that back in there. Lock it down. There we go. Okay, formed, vacuum sealed, treated in the Haveless Bush Tool gear wax, and we're going to let that sit there for a couple of hours, and then we'll open it up and see how it turned out. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, let's zip this thing out and see what it looks like. By the way, if you're interested, this is a large workhorse from Battle Horse Knives that I won a couple of years ago at the gathering. It's 01 tool steel, 5/32 inch thick, 8.5 inches overall, 3 5/8 cutting edge, and I believe this knife sold for $150, $170, something like that. Okay. Not really wet, it's still lubed up really good with that wax, and she's snapping in nice. Listen, hear that little pop? Pops when you undo it, pops when you come back. Quite a bit tighter, and we haven't even letting that wax really dry out good yet, so we'll set that outside in the sun, as hot as it is right now. she ought to finish baking out, and we'll see how it looks in some later videos. Alright guys, thanks for joining me today as we review the fast way to wet form and kind of a wax coat or treat our leather at the same time. This product that we put in here should, every time this knife sheath gets warm, that oil should help protect that, and if we do get it wet and we have to dry it out, it should also help with that. And of course the retention now is a lot better than it was, and that's exactly what we were looking for. So thanks for joining me for this project. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed bringing it to you. Until next time, I'm Tim Langston with Red Dog Bushcraft, home of global safety and survival. God bless.